Before the video starts, I want to let you guys know that, well, any footage that's not mine is going to be linked in the description, except for interviews. Anyway, enjoy the video. Outlast Trials, a new installment in the Outlast series, just released in its early access a few days ago. Well, exactly 1 week ago as of recording this. I've played through about an hour and a half of Outlast Trials with a friend of mine, and I'm Cadaver, and these are first impressions. Before we get into the actual, the mainstay of the content, or the meat and potatoes, if you will, I'm going to give you a brief overview on the developers, Red Barrel's history. As you may and should know, Red Barrel's claim to fame is the Outlast series. They are a private video game company, and they're based in Canada. It's important to note that the studio only has 40 employees. That is the most recent update, actually, on the number of employees. It could very well be different as it's halfway into 2023, and the list of employees was provided in 2022. Another interesting thing to note about Red Barrels is that they're actually a smaller company which branched off of Ubisoft Montreal. 3 guys who decided to leave Ubisoft Montreal and started their own company, and those are the 3 who founded Red Barrels: Philippe Morin, David Chateauneuf, and Hugo Delaire. Their first game, and it's still arguably their largest game, Outlast, the original Outlast. And here we are now at Outlast Trials. Now, there's a few developmental things to note about Outlast Trials, is that it was kind of in a mini development hell. Not as bad as something like Dead Island 2. God, Jesus, that fucking game was in development hell for years, like a decade, I think. And then Dead Island 2 is ass. The mini development hell that Outlast Trials was in was about 3 years. Initially announced in 2020, getting delayed again, and then getting delayed again, and well, now we have it in early access. Now, does that mean the game is out of development hell? Not 100%, because here, I'm going to explain it to you. Development hells are usually until the game fully releases, although it's looking good, and production from the Red Barrels team is looking pretty amazing, actually, considering we actually have the game now. It's not 100% polished, but I'll get into that later in the video. The game is still very fun, and I presume somewhere within the next 2 to 4 months that's when the game will be fully released. Anyway, this has been kind of a long time coming. Is Outlast Trials really worth the hype? Well, we have a bunch of different points to break down if we want to get to that conclusion. First up, we have aesthetics. Now, aesthetically speaking, this game looks amazing. There's no doubting that this game looks amazing. Atmosphere is absolutely beautiful. Lighting's good. Nothing's really out of the ordinary. And it is running on Unreal Engine 4, so it's only to be expected, because everyone knows that Unreal Engine 4 is just absolutely fucking bonkers for no reason. Everything absolutely fits the incredible atmosphere. Like I said, the game itself looks stunning because of Unreal Engine 4, and I don't need to elaborate that Unreal Engine 4 games are always visually stunning. The night vision is not too overwhelmingly green, which is a great thing. Obviously, if you're in lighter settings, the night vision is going to be, well, much brighter. But, if you're in complete darkness and you turn on the night vision, well, it looks good. It's not overwhelming or underwhelming in any senses so far. So, that's a great sign. I'm also going to lump UI into the same category because it's too small to deserve its own category, but it's relevant enough because I think UI is actually pretty important to a game. The UI is grainy and dingy, but in a clean way. It's not in your face, everything's out of the way, it's not too big and it's not too small, so I think the UI is perfect as well. So this game, it gets a 10 out of 10 in aesthetics. Now for our next category, which I think has been done very well, it's audio. Audio in Outlast Trials has pros and cons, more so pros, but I'll get into that a little bit later in the segment. The dialogue for the NPCs in Outlast Trials. It feels authentic, it feels good, as does pretty much all dialogue in any Outlast game. The voice actors do an excellent job portraying the emotions of these characters, and I greatly commend them for that.
Finally here. Please tell them to stop! Ah! You sons of bitches! Of course it hurts. That's how you know the therapy's working.
Acting in a game such as Outlast is among one of the most important things, and there's no getting around that. For example, Chris Walker's deformed grunts in the first Outlast, along with the music, had you essentially shitting yourself as you sprinted through the corridors trying to get away with him, and the fact that he was almost as fast as the player made it even more unnerving.
Fuck it. Go, 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 go. Oh! Not work as planned! That did not work as planned!
The sounds are good and crispy, and some sounds are even unnerving to hear, which is what the game kind of aims for. On the mainstay of this segment is music. Now, this is the first somewhat negative point I have about Outlast Trials. I'm not going to give it too much shit, since, you know, the developers can definitely change the music, but the standard chase music in the game is a little dry, in my opinion. Not bad, but it could definitely be a lot better. I don't like to compare this game to Outlast 1, but that should be kind of a pillar that this game should stand on in a way. Even though these games are different, even though Trials is a part of the Outlast series, it's important to note this. Outlast 1 had some of the most terrifying and bewildering chase music in any video game I've ever played, and I know many people can attest to this. Music is such a huge mainstay in video games. Games like Left 4 Dead or even Firewatch, if you guys remember the OST from that game. I'll play little snippets of these OSTs in their perfect forms. And the music is just sort of lackluster, if you will, and this is why I'm only going to give music sound design a 8 out of 10, because every other aspect of this game, its sound design is absolutely amazing, and there's no doubting that, but the music needs a lot of work. And also maybe unique chase themes for certain characters, which I haven't heard this far, but I could be wrong because this is just early impressions of the game. Nothing seems forced. It all flows pretty well. And again, everything just, you know, fits right into place. Nothing's clunky, nothing's too quiet, nothing's too loud, which is a huge bonus for the game. And I think that just propels its quality even further than it already is. In terms of the actual player characters, I think the voices are fine. I just think they need more. There's only one voice for male and female, and that's perfectly fine because, like I've said, and I will state numerous times throughout this early impressions review, it's important to note that the game is still in early access and it has a lot of room to grow, and I have no doubt that the Red Barrels team will add more voices for each gender later on down the road. If they didn't do that, that'd just be kind of fucking stupid, and I don't think Red Barrels is stupid, so that's not really a concern. Overall, I do believe that the audio design is very well done. Music leaves a little bit to be desired, and the voices leave a little bit to be desired as well. But as far as I'm concerned, it's extraordinarily high quality, and I firmly believe that the audio design for now gets an 8.2 out of 10. Like I said, the music in the most heated moments throughout the game is sort of lackluster, but it still does its job. And the voices do their job as well, but they're not extraordinary. Now on to probably the most important aspect, well, the gameplay. Outlast Trials gameplay it's fun. It's very fun. Now, it's important to note that, you know, this game does have room to improve, and I'm going to be lumping in stuff like AI quality, which I do have quite a bit to say about. But we're going to focus on the positives first, because I feel like in terms of gameplay, Outlast Trials is mostly positive. We're going to get into the multiplayer first, because that is the absolute strongest point of this entire game, considering the game is meant to be multiplayer. So we're going to break it down. Outlast Trials is inherently multiplayer. This has been kind of its main driving force, but it does have quite a bit of single player value and replayability as well. However, it needs to be noted that the multiplayer experience, it's very fun. It is very fun. You're gonna have a blast with your friends. Normally, I don't play games for more than 4 hours, but Outlast Trials is an exception. And I mean 4 hours in one sitting, which isn't often, because normally when I play with my friends, it's from 1 to maybe 3 hours, but I have a lot of fun the whole way through. I only get off because maybe I get tired or maybe I need a break or something like that. The game can be frustrating at times, but it's so fun to play with multiplayer. For example, if you're getting chased by an NPC and there's a co-op door and you and your friend are both running from the NPC, and you both go ahead and break down that door and continue running. I don't know why, I just really like that a lot. There's also other co-op actions, such as, boosting your friends to higher places, or, they do the same thing for you. Co-op actions are a huge strong suit of this game. Another thing is when you are lifting up a garage door, it goes faster when you and multiple people do it. It's just the little things like that, which make it all the more satisfying. The items you find on the ground, none of them seem useless. For example, the antidote, I've seen quite a few people say that the antidote is useless, but I prefer not to get fucked over by the Skinner man, so I like the antidote a lot, actually. Bricks and bottles are fun to use. Actually, bottles are my favorite item in the entire game, because I collect like 2 to 3 of them at a time and use 2 of them during chase, and I'll throw 1 to distract one of the NPCs. All the items, none of them seem meaningless. Rig rechargers are kind of busted, though. I can't even lie. Batteries, obviously a necessity. Good feature, though. The night vision, like I said, done very well. Doesn't feel terrible or anything like that. I said this in the aesthetics chapter of the video. Night vision, very well executed. Good battery system. Doesn't last too long, but doesn't last, too short. The NPC variety, or like the variety of the characters, it's not like super huge, but you remember this game is still in early access, so they do have a lot of work to do. But I don't find myself annoyed when I'm getting chased by an NPC like the Warden or Mother Gooseberry. They're always kind of fun to be chased by. None of the NPCs feel unnecessary or out of place. As much as I hate like the fucking big guys, I do actually like getting chased by them, because it is fun to be chased by them. It's really nerve-wracking, and that's what I'm looking for. The objectives in Trials aren't too overly complicated. They're actually pretty simple, but sometimes finding them can be a pain in the ass. Like the cleansing the orphans one, where you have to match the radio sequence, and it's really fucking finicky about the radio sequence. But I digress. Anyway, on to a little bit more the negatives. But, this won't be overtly negative. Although I believe the noise traps are a great idea, I don't think glass being a noise trap is a super great idea, considering you half the time you won't even know it's there. You can't even make the argument, oh, just pay attention. You literally cannot pay attention sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't even look like a noise trap. It just looks like it's part of the map. Also, the hitboxes on the cans and like the doll noise traps are super weird, because you can be like 3 feet in front of it and you stand up and it still fucking makes a noise and alerts the dude next door. They aren't terrible. I actually like the idea of noise traps. They're just a little finicky right now, and they just need some polishing and, maybe some perfection. That would do a lot for the game, actually. Let's see. AI. The AI is not bad, but it needs some serious work. The AI should be overtly challenging. You should not have the ability to like literally run past like an AI that's like 2 feet in front of you and it just ignores you. AI should also prioritize switching targets, in my opinion. So if your friend's getting chased by the Warden and you run past the Warden should change his target to you, because you just ran right past him. Their pathing can be kind of weird sometimes. Like sometimes the AI can like get stuck patrolling the same room for like 5 minutes at a time for some reason. I've only seen this once, but it just made the trial super easy. AI is not bad. It just needs quite a bit of polishing. And then, I think the AI will be a perfect 10 out of 10 because, other than that, the AI is like a 7.5 out of 10, which is not a bad score. It just needs some refurbishing. Now, the rigs. Hear me out. Hear me out. The rigs in Outlast trials are very strong. They're almost too strong, and I think rigs are fun to use, but I prefer to use the blinding mine one, the proximity mine where you place it down and it just like when an enemy NPC steps on it, it emits a bunch of smoke, which I think is good. But stuff like the healing rig I think the healing rig is too strong and definitely needs to be nerfed because there's no reason you should be able to just heal everyone back to full and also cure psychosis. That's too strong. I don't mind the players having, more options to survive and sometimes kind of fight back, but you shouldn't be able to just completely negate all the effects with one button. I think the stun rig is perfectly fine because it's like a bottle, but a little better, a lot better than a bottle, but it does the same thing and it's not too overtly powerful. So the stun rig is fine. The blind rig is pretty strong as well. If you upgrade it once, that thing becomes a fucking monster, which comes in clutch 9 out of 10 times. I heard people saying, one of my friends was saying the blind rig is super weak, but it's really not. It's actually one of the strongest rigs in the entire game, in my opinion, at least. I have escaped so many chases with the blind rig. It's so dumb. And I know it takes like a second or two to arm and put down, but that's not that much time, especially with the way the AI behaves, like for like around doors. It's super weird, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm just here to say that rigs maybe need a little bit of a nerf. That's pretty much all I wanted to talk about for rigs. Rigs are overall positive, but they're a little too positive, too strong. They need to be nerfed. Anyway, on to the single player experience. To be fair, there's not much single player experience given on the nature of Outlast Trials being multiplayer oriented, but I feel like Red Barrel should probably cater a little bit to those who enjoy a more single player based experience because, I've played some of the trials in a single player and they are playable. Like the Kill the Snitch one, that one's pretty playable. I got an A+ on that on my first go around, but what was a little frustrating is running into co-op doors because you can only do co-op doors with one other person or co-op actions with one other person, and that's a little frustrating when you're playing alone. That's a minor complaint, but the single player experience overall isn't that bad. Even the more negative things aren't overtly negative because the game is very well put together actually. Another thing that I think is actually more positive is because I failed to mention this earlier and that's my bad, is the permanent upgrades you can get for your character, like sliding, bashing through doors in 2 hits and whatnot. Those, I feel like they are perfectly balanced. Like, for example, the heavy lifting or the heavy training, where if you purchase the upgrade with 2 vouchers, you can run faster with large objects, which large objects are usually just like objective based stuff, like gas cans or the kid dolls in the fun park missions, stuff like that. Those are actually very well balanced, and I think those are a super great addition because it makes you feel more powerful, but it doesn't make you feel overly powerful. So I have a few closing thoughts. Outlast Trials is truly my game of the year so far in 2023. Not much has been able to compare up to it. Even in 2022, this game has been my game of the year for the past year or two. And it didn't even come out last year. The game is just so good. I love it. It's so fun with friends, and there's no denying how fun it is with friends. I know it can be a little frustrating because the AI is kind of wonky, but the game, for the most part, functions how it's intended, and the way it functions is a super fun multiplayer horror game, and it does exactly what it sets out to do, albeit, like I said, it's in early access, so it does need some polishing. Please keep in mind that this game still has a lot of room to grow, so the stuff that I was a bit more negative about, that I understand it has room to grow, and I know for a fact Red Barrels will deliver on what they intended. Not like a certain development team. Anyway, those are my closing thoughts on Outlast Trials, so far anyway. But hey, those are just my first impressions, and my first impressions give Outlast Trials a 9.3 out of 10. I would have given it a 9, but I did some more thinking because, you know, the game is amazing, but it does have room to grow. That's why it doesn't get a 10. Anyway, I appreciate anyone who stuck around for this long and listened to my review. This is one of the bigger projects I, thought about working on, but I have more stuff coming like this soon, if you want to see it, of course. Anyway, thanks for watching. See ya.